commercial production. We want to move the aquaculture industry into commercial success, and we do that by, and we thank I see Stacy on the call. WAM gave Stacy and her team approved 4 positions in the 2022 session, which, as you know, and some funding as well. The session ended in May. Since May, the aquaculture branch has been busily redescribing positions, trying to get positions on our org chart. It's a long process, but with the speed that they acted right now, the positions are with DHERD being reviewed. DHERD stands for the Department of Human Resources Development. The positions are in review, and hopefully we'll get the authority to post and recruit soon. So that's 4 positions. Todd is working on some projects that involve seaweed as a project for aquaculture. Once we have the staff, then we can get busy on projects. The strengthen and grow really starts with more staff and more funding. We are working on both. And if Todd is on the call and he can add to this, or I see Liz on the call, if they can add to that. No. Okay. Todd? Okay, so the elephant in the room is, of course, Senate Bill 818 that did not pass at the end of last session. We would hope that it would not pass or even be introduced in this session, but the chances of that are not good. They
grab the cord. Yeah.
Pardon? No. Okay. So we're going on the assumption that aquaculture is staying with the Department of Agriculture, and we are positioning those positions. I believe Todd said they're not the normal economic development specialist type positions, but they're more of a research commercial type of a position for the branch to actually more project driven. I do want to mention that right now there is something called the Regional Food Systems Infrastructure Grant that we're working on. We plan to submit it to the USDA next week, Friday. It is a $3.2 million formula grant, of which supports what they're calling the middle of the supply chain projects, infrastructure. So it's not production, it's not consumption, but it's everything you need from once you leave the farm level until you get to the retail level. Anything in there is what they're supporting. It's a brilliant move. You know, that's what we need. Aquaculture is supported, but it's not wild caught fish. Okay, it has to be farmed. It has to be something that's managed, like shrimp. Shrimp is something that they would consider funding. What kinds of projects? They have this one category that's called equipment. It's for not general purpose equipment, but for specialized type equipment that is ideal for aquaculture operations. It is a minimum of $10,000 to $100,000 for the purchase of equipment with no match. We haven't yet finalized our submission to the USDA, but we are thinking of the 3.2 million that we have, to set aside 1 million for the purpose of awards for equipment. Again, no match for that. It can be something like if you want to buy a vehicle that's strictly for delivery or transport, special type of truck that can transport water, for instance, something like that, that would be considered. But if it's just I'm going to say general purpose vehicle or truck, that is not considered. It has to have a special purpose specific to the operation that you're running, some sort of a middle of the supply chain type of project. The other category that is being supported is called infrastructure grants. An infrastructure grant really doesn't have I believe it has a $100,000 minimum, but it really doesn't have a maximum. What it does have, though, is so someone that lives in the city is going to be asked to match by 50%. So if you ask for $500,000, your match would be $500,000 for a total grant of $1 million. The grant can be in kind. Your in kind can be, I'm sorry, your match can be in kind and or cash. However, if you live in a rural area, which the USDA has an index for determining rural, your match is 25%. So if your ask of the federal government is 500,000, your match would be 1/4 of that. I'm sorry, let's say your total ask is 1 million and you're asking the government for 750 because your match is 25% of that, which is $250,000. That was hard for me. So it's a really good grant. I mean, I think it's kind of brilliant that they're supporting the production, supporting the nutrition side, but now they're supporting the infrastructure side. So this is ideal if there is a food hub for aquaculture. Last session, there was talk about creating aquaculture similar to Nelha, but an ag park. That's what it was, an aquaculture type park. It would be ideal for the creation of that. It's not much funding though, but you can use it. Look at everything you can do. You can actually modernize or expand an existing. There's a lot of use for it. Take a look. It's there's an FAQ section that just came out maybe 2 weeks ago. Check out the FAQs. It answers a lot of questions. So the RFSI. There's another grant that was just awarded to the Hawaii Good Food Alliance. It was the Regional Food Business Program, Food Business Centers Program. And they asked for 50, were awarded 30 million. So they're in the process now of a planning phase where they're now redirecting their funds and projects to fit the awarded 30 million. The food business centers, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture participated in that, in the end side of that, which was the marketing piece. What we're trying, because a food business has a marketing piece. So what we were trying to do is introduce trade shows or actually take members of commodity groups that you have indicated. So someone from your commodity group would be tapped by you, and we would take them to trade shows that were specific to, like the Boston Seafood Show or the Barcelona. I think Barcelona has this trade show, and they would be tasked to post daily their experiences at the trade show to kind of open up another world for businesses to consider attending a trade show. So that was our piece on that original grant. I'm not sure how much will be awarded for the redescribed submission. So those are the two grants I can think of that are more geared towards what you're doing, the larger type producers. But please don't forget the micro grants for food security program. It does support aquaculture, hydroponics, aquaponics. It's $5,000 to increase the quantity and quality of locally grown food in Hawaii. Okay, that's it. The next question was, I'm sorry, I should take questions now. Is that okay, Jean, or should we wait till the end?
Yeah, sure. If anyone has questions now, that would be wonderful.
No? Okay. What does HDOA need from the aquaculture industry?
Audio work?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Does it work?
Oops, did someone have a question?
Yeah. Look at that. Oh, look at this. Okay, there we are. Hi, Gene. Hi, Chair Hurd. My name is Nathan Sau with Jamestown Seafood. We're an oyster farm here at OTEC. I also represent Hawaii to the Pacific Coast Shellfish Growers Association on their board of directors. And you brought up Senate Bill 818, which is obviously, like you said, the elephant in the room and the very reason that I came to this meeting. You said it's very likely that bill is going to be reintroduced. Many of us in the PCSGA, the Growers Association, are vehemently opposed to that bill. And a lot of other private producers who aren't here in this room today are also vehemently opposed to that bill. What can we collectively do to prevent that thing from being rammed through the Senate again? And from my understanding, it was The only reason it didn't pass was because of Mr. Nakatani passed away. What are your thoughts on this, and what type of strategy does HDOA have in working with producers who do not want this bill to pass?
I believe, and as I said, we have our staff from our aquaculture development program, and I welcome them to chime in at any point because they're the ones that's impacted. They're the ones that are be moving from the Department of Agriculture over to ADC. Now, what can the industry do for us? And okay, let me start with this. There's a reason that the legislature, the introducers of the bill, ADC, wanted aquaculture to move over. It made sense to them because Nelha, you actually are housed in DBET, and they felt that uniting the aquaculture industry under one department would make sense. We said that there's a laboratory services piece that's part of the aquaculture industry, the nascent aquaculture industry, that we would like to keep. And it makes more sense because we have animal labs and we do testing for the shrimp, but the brood shrimp industry is the $1 million brood shrimp industry. So what we need from you is reasons to stay within the Department of Agriculture. So herald what we do for you, the services that we provide, the lab services particularly come to mind, but also ask them, make the case that we haven't been funded very well. There is I think it was 500,000 that was awarded in 2022, but then to criticize in 2023 that we haven't spent it, that to me was a little bit insincere because you know how hard it is to spend money in government. Once you get it around about August, then you have to go through a process of accepting the funds, setting up accounts. And then here comes January and we didn't have a chance to spend much of it. We have plans. I've seen Isaac, Dr. Maeda and Todd and their plans to expend the money, and it does involve a lot of collaboration. But so what I need is what this department, what aquaculture needs is your letters of support to perhaps the introducer of the bill. It would have been, I'm sorry, I don't remember who introduced the bill, but write to them and say, the industry is vehemently opposed to this and the reasons why. And what you can do to support us would be to fund us, increase, give us more staff. By the way, just an FYI, the OCCC jail is being, after many, many years of discussion, the OCCC jail is being relocated to the facility where our current plant quarantine facility is. So we will be distracted, you might say. So it's not a good time for us to move. But I see some hands up. I don't know how this goes, but I see Glenn. Are you first?
Yes, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chair Hurd, and Senator, please go ahead.
So, I think, Jim, you asked that question of Ms. Hurd. Why would the industry be against the opportunity to move from ag to ADC? Why would you be opposed to that?
I will defer to the industry.
Yeah, so my question was I think, was it Jim who asked the question? I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, Jim. Whoever asked that question is wanted to understand, or somebody from the industry can explain to me why would the industry not want to embrace going over to ADC?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we had, again, this is Nathan Sow with Jamestown Seafood, oyster producer. So the main reason why we're opposed to it is because, well, there's two. One is that a lot of us have really excellent relationships with HDOA. The permitting process for all of us is very clear and pretty concise and standardized, and we like that. I think it was just the big uncertainty of having our permitting process being moved to something that we don't really know what we're getting into. I guess you could call that the devil you know over the devil you don't, in a roundabout sort of way. That's the main point that a lot of us had.
But look at where you've gotten yourself with that comfort level. I mean, aquaculture continues to struggle in this state. And it's even before Director Hurd took over, aquaculture was kind of the stepchild of the Department of Agriculture. It got no funding, it got no resources, it got very little. And even this past year, the Department of Agriculture didn't ask for any extra funding for the for aquaculture division. I put it into the budget. Those 4 positions that Director Hurd asked for, talked about, those were not requests from the Department of Agriculture. The Ways and Means Committee put that in there. So I'm not too sure why people here from the industry are happy with the status quo. We have to do something different. And ADC, from some lawmakers' perspective, was kind of an interesting opportunity to just do something different, because otherwise we're going to be talking about these same issues 5-10 years from now, wondering why aren't we able to capitalize on the ocean as a resource for economic development and food sustainability.
Yeah, again, that's a big part of the conversations that we had amongst industry is, this might be a way to bring new players in, but as existing players, we really don't understand the process that was gonna be unfurled to us, and there was no communication before this was introduced to industry from the ADC. So again, it was the massive gray area that us existing producers had was really, why we took a negative stance against it.
Okay,
and
maybe
that in all of the testimony that we had submitted to the oh man, sorry, my brain is slipping on the exact channel.
There was
the testimony that we written.
Yeah, there was
introduced.
10 testimonies submitted, 9 were in opposition and 1 was in support. The one in support was from ADC. If Todd has still got his hand up, I don't see it. Todd, did you want to say something?
Okay, just finish up with one comment, that maybe the industry should get together with lawmakers and find out what a better path forward is. Because to be honest, I don't think that the Department of Agriculture is fully supportive of growing this sector. And if the Department of Agriculture is not going to be receptive to that, something different might be better. And I'm happy to work with all of you to shape what that something different is. But I think many of us are frustrated with the lack of focus and the lack of resources devoted to the growth of aquaculture in this industry.
Okay, Senator, please include me in that session, because I am fully committed to the aquaculture program. I started in January. I'm 8 months into it. And the people on this call, I've met, I know, I've been working with them for years. Nell is not a stranger to me, neither is Greg. So please include me in the discussions. Okay?
Sure, we'll be happy to include you, Sharon.
Thank you.
But the history is not on your side. It's not just something that you inherited. It's been a long-standing issue with the Department of Agriculture not fully supporting the aquaculture division. So I'm happy to work with all of you, but I don't like the idea that somehow the knee-jerk reaction is because it's unknown, we're going to all oppose it vehemently. Like, that is probably not the right way to approach how we all want to get to a better place.
No, I think we're in agreement on that, Senator. Todd and Ron?
Yeah, so just as a point of clarification, I believe the bill was not to move the regulatory arm over anyway. It was really more about the development side. So Nathan, if that was your somewhat of the gray area, regulatory authority sits with the Department of Ag, and I don't believe that would have changed. But this discussion really is about what Senator Wakai is talking about, and how do we move forward on this thing, and what do we need to do to build the right framework that moves these issues forward, whether it's restorative aquaculture or the traditional aquaculture for food production.
This is Ron.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I would like to clarify that the Aquaculture Association had prepared a white paper that detailed what we felt was needed to move the industry forward. This was perhaps 1.5 years ago, and that's where the positions were detailed initially. And so we did provide input on a pathway forward. we were glad that Senator Wakai did put that wording into action, but it did start with industry, and we have a long established relationship with USDA and with Department of Ag locally, and aquaculture has been a natural fit for a long time. It varies from administration to administration how much support we actually get. We've never really recovered from the dramatic downsizing that occurred under Governor Lingle, and it's been an uphill battle to get the program rebuilt. But the industry has continued to grow. It could certainly grow much better with broader support, but the budget of the whole department, as well as for the aquaculture program, is notoriously low. And but there is expertise within Department of Ag that we need, and that expertise, to our knowledge, does not exist in ADC. ADC has a different focus, and so it just didn't seem like a good fit. It doesn't seem like a good fit to us.
Thanks so much for your comments. And, Nathan, Senator Wakai, Chair Hurd, and Ron, really good discussion. Does anyone else want to chime in on their thoughts on that particular topic, the SB 818, before we move to, I see there's some questions in the chat. So before we move on to that, I wondered if anyone else has thoughts.
Jim's raising his hand.
Yeah, could I chime in? I don't want to get into a scrap between agencies, but I would say what's missing in at least my perception of what HDOA is talking about and the expertise represented in the 4 new staff is what the other side saying, oh, well, we should have moved part of it over to ADC. I don't really care about that, but the expertise that is missing that I want to see inserted into aquaculture development is economic development expertise. Like, how do we develop these companies on the commercial side so that they have a better likelihood of being successful, and that we can grow this industry in a rational fashion. And, traditionally, at least, HDOA has been a little bit more on the regulatory side of things. So I would like to see more economic development discussions, like Senator Wakai mentioned. And I would say that, I listened to Todd's presentation a couple of weeks ago on the regenerative or restorative aquaculture. And that's all well and good, but I don't really see that moving us towards production and making money. That sounds like nonprofit kind of activity. And maybe there's federal dollars that would support that, but it's not like, I think we have to create products to make money, things to sell, not just projects. So that's my 2 cents.
Jim, I agree. Economic development, commercial production, moving aquaculture into commercial, viability is a goal that we have. Regarding NELHA is under ADC, and DBED, and they're very successful, right? But to your point, I'm sorry, NELHA, but to your point, are they producing food for local production, for local consumption? Or are they more a research facility to grow out and support their, another type of they're exporting, or they're sending back to the mainland? We would work with NELHA and ask them to please try to contribute to doubling local food production and have the food stay here. So that's the kind of aquaculture ag park that caught my attention when Senator De La Cruz mentioned it. It's the kind of production that stays here. You know, we shouldn't be a raw material. You know, you create your raw material here and then you ship it back to the mainland or export it to foreign countries. We should be.
No, it doesn't have anything to do.
Go ahead.
It's-
Somebody.
All right.
Nell has their hand up.
Are we on? Yeah. Hi, yeah, this is Tyler Cordy from Blue Ocean Mariculture. Just in response to that comment about NELHA, so Blue Ocean has been developing here at NELHA for, through 2 different companies for 15 years. And we just finished 600 tons of commercial production last year, be about 900 tons this year, with 60% staying in the Hawaiian Islands. And our market continues to grow in the Hawaiian Islands. It's our #1 target market for food security and also to expand more. So we think the Hawaiian Islands can take up to 900 tons of our product alone. And that's our #1 target for the security of the state and just for the development of the economies here at a larger scale. Thanks.
Thank you for that comment. And thank you for increasing local food production. And continue to do so. My comment is that we would like to duplicate NELHA, but so focus solely, responding to Jim Wyban's comment, on economic development within the state for local producers. So we want to do that type of a park, but also try to move more of the NELHA tenants into producing for local food consumption.
Such a wonderful conversation. Thank you. Senator Wakai, do you have another comment?
I want to follow up on that comment, Director Hurd. So if Jim, and I agree with Jim's position that we should be doing some level of research, but also have a heavy emphasis on commercialization, getting the venture funding, getting all of the things, distribution, marketing, all of those things. Is that really Department of Agriculture's expertise? I mean, I look at you as more of a regulatory agency rather than an entity that really helps grow and enhance agricultural marketing, distribution, and all of the things that come after the thing comes out of the ground or out of the water.
Yeah, so that's a comment that we addressed at the Hawaii Coffee Conference the last month. Basically, we have 2 parts of us. We have regulatory and we have developmental. The developmental side is the side that has the statistics. We have the marketing piece. We go after grants. We work with the commodity groups. If they want to do something, we support that. Our developmental side has been pretty, I would say, invisible with regard to aquaculture, but certainly not so with the coffee industry, with the specialty crop industry. So I agree with, if the criticism is that we haven't been developmental with the aquaculture industry, it could be that for us, the aquaculture industry was so new for the industry. I mean, we're not talking coffee, right? Or tropical fruits. We're talking an industry that supplies 70% of all the consumption of seafood in the United States of America, right? So we need a piece of that. And we agree. It's just not there yet. So if
But
that,
going back to the successes at NELHA, thank God we have Hatch that came in, that was brought in with HTDC money. It was all of these other entities that had nothing to do with agriculture that helped kind of spur NELHA as a real good focal point for aquaculture growth. And if these other entities have the expertise on the commercialization side of things, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to look at ADC as the entity that would help grow these people. You help them at the beginning, all of the pests and viruses and all of that kind of stuff that's important. But when it comes to taking these fish and crustaceans and mussels to market, I think it should be another entity, not the Department of Agriculture.
okay, thank goodness for Hatch. I resoundingly agree with that. And I brought that topic up with Todd the other month, and he responded that apparently we are working with Hatch. Todd, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so a couple items. According, so regarding Hatch, we have a project with them to improve our strategic plan, which will add some more meat to the bones of the plan that I have. And they will be reaching out to several of the people that are on this call for some feedback. In terms of development, and we're not playing defense, but just make sure everybody has all the right information. Until the legislature and Senator Wakai was able to fund us with the $400,000 of general funds, our general fund budget was $29,000 a year. And that's a year, right? So we had to beg, borrow, and steal to see what we could do to keep developing things. And we did see the industry grow. If you look at the stats, the industry has progressively gotten larger, whether it's because of us, who knows, but we're around at that time. For Jim's point about the restorative aquaculture, I believe I mentioned we are in the process of doing a biocomposite analysis of the 5 indigenous species. The reason we're doing that is to identify the characteristics of the seaweed so we can get to the value-added products that are downstream. The problem I'm faced with now is that I'm going to be looking at the framework to jumpstart product development. Because it's great if we look at production of seaweed and we know what to do, but the products that are downstream are not necessarily just going to be the raw seaweed for food. And so product development comes to the forefront. And this is not an area that we necessarily work with in agriculture, but how do we develop the ideas for the nutraceuticals, the pharmaceuticals, the fertilizers, et cetera, and get to the point of economic sustainability. We're not just using buzzwords. Jim, we are in Department of Ag, and it's about making money. So we need to get the social acceptance from the community that supports the seaweed, but behind that has to be the work that goes into what products can we develop out of it that will keep this thing going. And I believe that with the support and not the pushback from, let's say, the environmental side on this aquaculture segment, it will raise the boats and open up, it'll expand the industry enough so that other species can come through, other ways of developing the frameworks and the foundational pieces such as hatcheries, et cetera, that will lift all the other pieces of aquaculture, because we continue to get pushback if we want to bring out a new ocean cage. We can continue to get pushback on trying to get a new species through plant quarantine. It just doesn't happen. So we have to find out a way through that. I believe restorative aquaculture is a direction we can move in that is supported by the green side and has the ability to be economically sustainable down the road. Anyways, but again, this is just kind of a free-ranging topic and discussion. And if you want to make comments, please go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Does
This is
anyone
Todd.
want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
At Nelha?
hi, Todd. Nathan again. You mentioned something along the lines of social license, maybe not in those exact words. I see a lot of anti-aquaculture folks in the community. I sit on the West Hawaii Fisheries Council also, and amongst my friends on that board, many of them are greatly opposed to what we do down here at Nelha, and they have their valid points. As a state and as a community, to further aquaculture in Hawaii, what are the mechanisms, to get the message of aquaculture through to the community? Great question.
Well, that's a great question, Nathan. I mean, I don't believe there's a silver bullet. I think it has to come out to, we have to do things that is more acceptable to the communities around the areas of aquaculture, let's say. So people end up looking at, if we come out and say, this is just for commercial production, immediately the lines get drawn and people go into the bunkers. If we can find topics such as seaweed or even the nearshore stuff that we're talking about, which is the reforestation of the nearshore marine areas, that the benefits are for the environment, which is right, the carbon and the water quality, et cetera, and for the communities to support that, either with the fish ponds or the nearshore stuff. That's a huge way to get toward, it's called social acceptance, right? And this is not just guarantee it's going to work, or it's being devious. It's because the backbone of that is going to be hatcheries and clean seed stock, right? That gets distributed to the people that are doing the outreach and doing the planting, let's say. I'm not abandoning the food side, but if we keep pushing the food side, and we've been doing this for years, I believe that we're gonna be very limited. And besides, our plant quarantine side, which is under DOA, is not supportive of our industry. That's why we're looking at indigenous species. So if we're able to make movement in an area that is good for the community and good for the environment, I believe we can push that further into more production offshore or onshore, depending on the systems. And that will float the boats for the rest of the aquaculture industry. Because what we're really lacking is the size of an industry, such as whether it's coffee or seed corn or whatever, that we can make a fist in and punch through, whether it's politically or whether it can be recognized as a robust part of this of the Hawaii ag economy. Our problem is that even at 70 million, or I think we're at 65 or whatever it is, it's not very large. So we need to get bigger. How do we get bigger? If we can't push through large projects on the food side, we have to find another way. That's my point. Maybe I'm wrong. This is just what I've seen for the past X amount of time. And so far, everything is it's a possibility. Another project, and I don't think anybody knows this, but we're putting together a project to grow the seaweed, indigenous seaweeds in the for the wastewater effluent from the sewage treatment plants, because it'll scrub the nitrogen and phosphorus, right? You guys know this. Right now, that treated water is treated, but it goes out into the ocean. So again, we know the seaweed will grow. It gets tied back to the biocomposite analysis side of what that seaweed's inherent characteristics are, so that we can get to some value-added products. That seaweed, not necessarily just because it's grown in the wastewater, would you want to eat it? I believe it's clean, but the marketing side would be a challenge. But if we are able to make the biofuels or make the bioplastic or whatever, it doesn't matter. So this is all part of an overarching strategy to grow the industry further and to get enough weight so that we can get to the table to get either better funding or better support from the ledge or a better home or whatever it is, that we can move ahead. So anyway, I'm kind of on a soapbox now, but that's really what we're kind of looking for in terms of why we're looking at seaweed and what we need to go forward. If we stick with just food fish or food production, it's a tough road, you guys. And I'm open to comments. I believe someone else has their hand up.
Thanks, Todd. Yes, let's go to Ame.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to ask Chairperson Hurd, on the equipment side, I put it into the chat area, but clarification on what qualifies as equipment under that grant. I was wondering if that would include equipment for a feed mill or developing a feed mill here in Hawaii to help support some of the nearshore and onshore aquaculture development, like pelletizers, grinders, analysis machinery, microscopes, things like that. And thank you. That was my question.
Okay, so Ame, would you define those pieces of equipment as part of the middle of the supply chain to produce food for the middle of the supply chain? Are you developing a value-added product? Are you doing something?
Those machineries would be to develop aquatic feed to be used both locally and possibly exported. But I think
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Is it for food for people or food for animals?
Food for animals.
Yeah, I'd have to look in. I don't believe it's for food for animals.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about like value-added machinery to process raw materials that are produced locally into a value-added product.
Middle of the supply chain for food production. So the equipment that you're talking about would qualify if the end product was food for people.
What if it was multi-use, where it could be used for both value-added products to be sold and consumed locally by people, and then also because it wouldn't be constantly producing, right? If it was sufficient equipment, you could utilize it also to produce food pellets for animals for the aquaculture industry.
Ooh, interesting. So you're producing feed for fish, but the fish would eventually be consumed by people.
Correct.
Let me get back to you. I'll send my response to but Jean, but I'm still of the idea that it's a no, because it's the middle of the supply chain with the end product being food for people.
Oh,
I
have a quick comment on the feed mill, if that's okay.
Sure.
There is a current ADC project for a small commercial level feed mill that's in process right now. And they are basing it on taking the waste stream. I think I mentioned this before in some other talk, but Diamond Head Seafood is the main contractor, and taking their fish waste that they develop, they produce from all the poke counters, etc., and making fish meal and going into feed production on a small scale, which is sort of a pilot. So Ame, that's whether or not that fits into what you're thinking. This project is already moving. The ledge gave $4 million as seed money for construction and equipment in that project. And it is already moving. We don't have really a timeline on that, but it's in process. So that project would potentially be able to produce, whether it's tilapia feeds or even livestock feeds or whatever, in the short term here, hopefully soon.
Thanks for that, Tabo. I've been in touch with Dylan Howell over at Hatched, and he informed me of a similar project. I hadn't heard back on any of the details since June on that. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the discussion so far. And we have another comment or question at NELHA.
Yeah, thank you. Tyler Cordy again from Blue Ocean Mariculture. Todd, great to see that you're still in this and all the work that you're doing. Just a question on, you were speaking of the direction going to more regenerative and restorative. Just wondering, why not looking more towards supporting the industry through integrating multi-trophic or RAS systems onshore that are basically doing both, creating products and sequestering carbon near shore in RAS systems or offshore. We did a collaboration with Ocean Era a year ago and extended our permit to do a trial with seaweeds, doing the exact same thing as tracing the nitrogen from the fish waste to see what kind of seaweeds would do good in a possible multi-trophic system offshore that would support a local algae and basically be upcycling those nutrients, which is kind of a better word than growing it in the wastewater. It's just upcycling all those great nutrients. But it would be great to see the state looking towards that, where we can hit both goals. Acceptance of carbon sequestration through industry, where we're actually able to produce products, but then also have that restorative and carbon sequestration happening at the same time.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. I guess it's Tyler. The issue that, not the issue, the challenge I see with IMTA is that we have not seen it proven out on a commercial level yet. And I know Neil is putting together a proposal for an IMTA system off of Eva Beach, and he's in the midst of that, I think. I'm not quite sure on his status, but he is already moving in that direction. Hopefully that it will get through the permitting process, so that's a long and arduous path. What we're faced with is with our limited resources, we have to figure out what horse to bet on, right? And with the people like yourselves and at Blue Ocean, I think, and Neil, those are large-scale systems and large-scale companies that have the ability to get through the permitting, get through the EIAs and the EISs and move those projects forward. Typically, we kind of stay out of the way of you guys. The restorative thing is much closer to the ground. And I believe that if we could do everything, I would do everything. But it remains in a perception as the communities look at things that it would still be just for the commercial value. And that to me gets us right back to what we're trying to get to with this social acceptance. I'm not here to abandon the regular aquaculture stuff. We've been living it, we've been trying to push this. But I believe that there has to be another way through, that we can get smaller scale production and smaller scale projects going on in the community level that will create a momentum to move forward. I wish I could do everything, but again, with our limited funds, we can't do everything. The reason why we're looking at the wastewater is that is a huge win for the social side. And it's a huge win for the environmental side. We know that we're going to get production off of this thing. So what do we do with it? And that allows us, it's in a controlled environment and we can see it, we can touch it, and we can move forward. Again, these are just pilot projects that are not that expensive to move forward, and we can see what we can do. But anyways, again, we have to choose something. We have to, and stick to a plan, right? And to see whether or not we can get what the movement we're looking for, and kind of create a momentum. My thoughts.
Great, thanks, Todd.
Todd, this is Nathan again with Jamestown Seafood. So when we look at what companies have been down here at Nelha for, let's say, greater than 10 to 20 years, you have a lot of, Alex is laughing at me from across the table. You have the companies that last are the companies that are creating a high value product. So leaning into seaweed, and no one here is against limu. We eat it every day in poke. But how does Department of Agriculture, or how does the state grow aquaculture into almost a reverse business model of what happened with big ag and the price of land and the price of shorelines with the old staple crops of Hawaii, sugarcane, pineapple, that kind of thing. When you're talking about seaweed, you're talking about huge footprints. And I'm a simpleton, but I don't see how that translates to this particular environment. And it would seem to me that to grow aquaculture in a profitable way for industry would be to facilitate, places like this, like Nelha, to have that option of high value, low footprint products. And speaking with Senator Dela Cruz, he wanted to put a Nelha style facility on every island. And, right there, that would be fantastic. Again, tying into social licenses, there's too many mouthfuls for me to put together, on the spot. But I think small footprint, high value products such as food fish, even ornamentals. I know a lot of people are against that. I think that's the way to go.
I appreciate your comments, Nathan. I guess this is, and we can agree to disagree. I don't see that. I see that's a tough road, an extremely tough road that we've been trying to do for a while. I get it. Ag has to be profitable. That's the point of building other industries that are outside of the food, because food will always be limited by the amount of people that are here on the island, which is a small, it's like 1.4 million at the most, 1.2, whatever. And then we have to export. And this product is either going to be fresh or it's going to be value added, and we'll have to figure out that. If I can develop an industry that has basically no shelf life, right? If it's a biofuel, it has some sort of other bioproduct, that I believe will open up other parts of this industry, that these niche high value food products can absolutely flourish. It'll live, but we'll have enough of an industry weight to keep going. Because Nathan, how many little industries, how many little companies are we going to build to double our production? How many? You're right. Seaweed takes a huge footprint. But if we are able to grow things on land and in the ocean, it's the nearshore stuff. I don't see it being a huge productivity thing, but I see it as a way to educate and to connect with the communities around a product, an indigenous item that everybody supports. Of course, we have to get further out into scale, but what does that look like? We don't even know. We don't even know what that future is, but globally, that's a growing industry. That globally, that is where everybody's pushing. And not that we're going to follow it just because of that, but we're going to get the research and the momentum from those areas that can come in and help us lift everybody up. So anyways, I think we have some philosophical differences. It's just that over the years, we've seen NELHA's great. I love it, but it is a high footprint, a high cost to their footprint. And because they're in DBED, all that cost gets associated and passed on to the producers there. And that water cost is a killer. So what else can we do? Even if we put a NELHA on every island, we've talked to Senator about that before. That's an excellent idea. If you have the topography and everything to work it out, right? But that's an enormous cost to bring up that water and to pump it through the systems and to keep it biosecure, right? So we just have to have some sort of an idea about what we're trying to do. I think the ability to have mobile hatcheries on every island to put out clean seed stock is a huge thing for a foundational piece for the industries. And we see this daily, more and more ideas are coming out. There's a new idea that they're taking seaweed and making flour from it. They're making, and these are not, you're right, it's not super high end. I get it. But these can be foundational pieces that will keep driving the economy. And then we can start to go back to these targeted areas that we're able to bring in new species. We can't get a new species in a fish because of PQ. Won't happen. And we don't have the weight of the industry to punch them in the head. We can't get certain things going with permitting. But if we have enough support and momentum, I believe that we can move the regulatory side through. But
Thanks,
again,
Todd.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. And, thank you everyone for the very spirited conversation. I think what that tells us is that there's so much passion in the industry, and can we be grounded together in our goal to strengthen and grow aquaculture and development? There are different ways and opinions on how to do that, obviously. And I'd like to ask Chair Hurd, we're at the end of our time today, but, Chair Hurd, how can we continue this conversation with you? Could we have regular meetings, or are you able to come to the conference on September 27th? And could we structure a conversation then?
Okay. Don't know about the 27th, still have to look at the calendar. There's a lot going on, but here's what I think. For the industry, let's say for the next ledge session, let's put some meat onto the ask that we have. So let's say we all agree 20 million is not an unreasonable number. Okay. So let's say to your industry, what do you think we should do? What do you want done with $20 million? Do you want to support an ag park? I think it's a little bit difficult to do an ag park on every island right now. I think let's choose. You tell us $20 million. I think the best place for this ag park is going to be Molokai. And then all the reasons for that, what you're going to do with the money, and then have a competing proposal. No. We think that this $20 million would be best just to upgrade Nelha, expand Nelha. Let's put a piece in there that just focuses on creating local food. Something like that. That's the challenge.
Give it to Nelha.
Give it to Nelha.
Give it to Nelha.
My thing is we got to start doubling food production, and you're doing a great job, Nathan, but not everybody at Nelha is, so let's do that.
But we're doing it all without state dollars.
Pardon?
But everything that happens here happens without state investment. Imagine what would happen if the state actually put some real money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have 20 million, tell us what you would do with it. And then we'll go to the ledge with that. Give us 20 million. The industry says we need to do this. And that's our marching orders. I think Ami still has her hand up. No?
It's me, Dylan from Hatch. I will say that we will be reaching out to most people. In fact, I hope all people a call and a lot of other stakeholders in the next couple of weeks to get feedback on a personal basis, to get more contribution to this strategy report. So do expect an email from me in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Hurd, and thanks, Dylan. And Senator Wakai, do you have some final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what Director Hurd, you mentioned is a little bit troubling about how you want to approach the next legislative session. I mean, earlier at the outset, you talked about how you're chasing grants and all these federal things. That is just kind of busy work. We have to have a strategy on how it is, not just like, oh, we're going to create a Nelha on every island. I mean, that is ridiculous.
I didn't say that.
No, okay, well, that's something that you said, that if we had $20 million, what should it look like?
I'm asking the industry, come up at the next conference in September, somebody have a panel discussion on how you would spend $20 million to move the industry towards economic profitability. Whether it be, okay, that was my thing.
Okay, so
I think
to even throw a number out there like $20 million, maybe it's $5 million, maybe it's $500 million. What's missing in all of this discussion is there is no strategy, right? When we have a strategy, then we know what we're chasing. We kind of just like throw out numbers there and then backfill in what the plan is. So I think at the next summit that you're having, it should really be about the stakeholders figuring out what is it that we need, everything from the permitting side to the regulatory side to the commercialization side. What is it that Hawaii needs? And then we're not going to fund all of it. Then we start strategically putting the money into all of these little pots. But to just say like, oh, we're going to just ask for a number out of the sky and then we're going to figure it out later. That's irresponsible.
Well, it's a brainstorming session. I'm sorry if that's the way it came off to you, Senator. It was just a brainstorming session to throw ideas out there. It could be 1 million, it could be 500. It's just we want to hear what the industry would do with the funding. And the economic strategy is there, but we're waiting for the 2023 Census of Agriculture results to come out based on the 2022 data and based on how many the number of businesses that report revenues, in this bucket under 2,500, we have a strategy for them. If you report less than $25,000 a year, we have a strategy for them. If you're reporting greater than $500,000 a year, we have a strategy for you. But right now, the strategy is, let's hear from the industry. Let's hear what you would do with the funding. And I think he said Senator De La Cruz would like to put a NELHA on every island. And that's a great idea, but it's unrealistic for right now. So let's talk real numbers. Let's see, what do you, if you gave us, if you had industry, you know, put a number there, 5 million, what would you do with it? But it would be different for an operation that's reporting less than $2,500 a year and an industry that's reporting greater than $500,000 a year. That's how I wanted to segment it. It's just brainstorming. It's just brainstorming.
Okay, my commentary to all of the rest of the stakeholders on this call is you come up with a strategy. Don't wait for Department of Agriculture to come up with it. Lawmakers will listen to you. You know what troubles the industry. You know what is successful and what is problematic. So at your conference, start putting together the pieces and putting together the strategy, which we then can have handed over to the Department of Ag director, and then the legislature can fund it. But this kind of piecemeal approach to this and that, when we don't have a clear idea of what we're about to do and how we want to grow, that is just spinning our wheels for nothing. We should really have a well-grounded and stakeholder invested in plan that the Department of Agriculture and the legislature can embrace.
I agree. It should come from the stakeholders.
Exactly, Sharon.
Well, I do want to thank you all so much for staying on a little later. Thank you so much, Chair Hurd and Senator, for your comments, and NELHA for your participation there, and everyone on the call. And so we're going to process what we heard. I'm going to lean on some of our steering committee members for next steps. There are some questions in the chat that I think were not answered, and so we'll forward those to Chair Hurd and get those answered for you. But you'll be hearing from us. Please come to this conference so that we can continue the discussion. We very much appreciate your attendance today, and if you have questions or comments, please feel free to email us as well. So thank you all so much. Take care. Aloha.